Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC, a proud member of the Beautiful Game Network. I'm your host, Phil Bakke, and tonight I am joined by two from the crew. It is Mikka Burrell. Mikka, how's it going?
It's going good. We finally saw Locomotive football after 3 or 4 months, so that was nice.
Yeah, nice change of pace, and with a winning result too. So not much better from a podcasting perspective for Seriously Loco.
Exactly. I'm glad I was wrong with my prediction. So
yeah, we will get into that later. Now that our predictions have consequences, thanks to our man Christian Canales, who joins us again tonight. Christian, welcome back. And how are you feeling the day after a dub?
Yeah, feeling great. That's all you can ask for, is to be able to record, regarding an actual real match that happened and, that we won. So doing as good as I can.
Yeah, this was, I know, kind of a strange circumstance, and obviously without fans in the stands for this one. I wanted to get your guys' sense. Obviously, we've kind of gotten a feel for how these games go with the restart of play in Europe and a lot of big European leagues. But watching a USL match, and Mikka, we can start with you. Watching a USL match from this perspective, and hearing some of the back and forth from the players, hearing some of the communication, like, how was that for you watching as a fan and, with your role here on Seriously Loco?
Yeah, it was definitely different, but it wasn't. I guess since we've been watching some of the bigger leagues and gotten used to the sight of no fans and kind of, I guess, fake crowd noise or the clean streams, depending on how you like to watch it.
Yeah.
I've been able to get used to kind of the different setup that we have for the time being. I personally like that we didn't pump in, fan noise either in the stadium or on the ESPN Plus stream. Whether they actually have that capability or not, I'm not sure. But I like hearing the sounds of the game and the players and the coaching staff talking. I think it's really fascinating because it's something that you don't see otherwise or hear otherwise. Definitely some F-bombs dropped on on the stream, which ESPN clearly cannot do anything about. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, it's sad that there's no people in the stadium. Obviously, the club, they had the cutouts in section 105, which is a nice little touch. My club, Mönchengladbach, really started something, so that's cool. But yeah, it's different, but at the same time, it's the same. It's football, and I'm just happy it's back.
Christian, you penned a piece on this exact topic that will be going live not long after this, actually, on our Patreon. So if you guys have not already, the Patreon is going to be going again pretty thick and fast with the content. So if you want to subscribe, go ahead and check our Patreon out, Seriously Loco. But Christian, I mean, from your perspective, just this kind of whole watching without the atmosphere that we're used to, how is it for you as a fan?
I mean, it's just very different. I think that the bigger thing, we've been watching soccer matches, from all over the world without fans for the last couple months now. But the big difference here is that this time we're doing it because we have to. We don't have a choice that we usually do to go to the stadium and watch these matches in person. So that's a little harder to deal with. But I mean, just happy that it's happening. And hopefully, the people that are involved in these things and that are planning and organizing and working these things, stay safe and stay healthy so that these things can keep happening. And hopefully us as fans in the community are doing what we need to do so that sooner rather than later, we can be back there on the field, feeling safe and comfortable doing so.
Absolutely. And Locomotive was back. They run out 1-0 winners against Rio Grande Valley FC, who we had talked about earlier this week, or I guess last week, however you want to look at it. Kind of a bogey team for us and not in our group. So in this return to play situation, it's our first game back, but we're playing a out of group opponent in RGV. And I think we as a group kind of have to hold our hands up and admit that when we were predicting the starting lineup for this one, we didn't really take into account the fact that it was a non-group game, and with all the congestion around the games and literally New Mexico United coming up on Wednesday, we didn't really take that into account. So the starting lineup looked a little bit different than what we had predicted. What were you guys' thoughts when the lineup actually did come out? And then obviously we have a lot to talk about with this first half and kind of some of the dysfunction in the team. Do you think some of that came down to the selection? Or was it really more about how these guys are just returning to play after a 4-month, essentially moratorium on training and all of this? So what were you guys' thoughts on the selection and how it impacted that first half?
Yeah, so selection-wise, you're absolutely right. I didn't think at all about how, one, this is an out-of-group opponent, and, it's kind of a lesser match compared to the group matches now that we have this new setup going forward. But also, our big rival is on Wednesday. I think we're so used to seeing Mark trot out the best 11 more often than not. He doesn't rotate just for rotation's sake. So I think that played into our predictions. But as the lineup comes out, I was surprised to see Yuma and Chapa starting. That was surprising to me. Everywhere else wasn't too shocking. And of course, the diamond doesn't surprise me anymore, and I'll get into my thoughts on that. Yeah. But kind of an interesting selection, and it was good to see new players get time on the pitch, namely Lomas and Maris. So overall, I think it was surprising with midfield, but perhaps in the defense and attack, it was kind of what we could expect.
With this lineup, Christian, obviously we had spoken about Eder Borelli joining the team. Mark saw it as, we talked about him throwing players into the fire. In this case, do you think it was just strictly kind of a fitness thing that Eder Borelli doesn't get thrown into that first match? Because we spoke last week about his quality that he offers, but it seemed maybe too soon for the new addition from Bravos.
Yeah, I guess it has to be. I don't know if there's maybe things we don't know about, or like that maybe he wasn't eligible for this match or whatever reason. But it has to be one of those two. I don't think it was a tactical decision. I would have to say that, maybe everyone else on the bench except Memo. I think that Borelli is probably, as far as quality goes, he's probably up, above Memo on the totem pole. So it was strange. I guess, like I said, either fitness or an eligibility issue. But I was just kind of like Mikka said. What surprised me was that I when we were talking about the lineup, I had considered, the congestion and stuff, but I had just still thought that Mark was going to roll out the best 11. That was what was the most surprising. Not that these people played, but who he chose to start. And I figured he'd work around it from that direction rather than work the best 11 in later.
Yeah, and I think both of those points that you guys made, we are very used to him going full strength and really not so much that he's not concerned about fixture congestion and rotation and all of those things, but he more often than not was focused on the result and playing a team that would get the most. And I think, there was a box at the beginning that said no injuries to report from Locomotive, which I think we're all a little not used to. We're used to, being kind of shorthanded due to injury. So that was, we had kind of a glut of selection options for Mark. Obviously a good problem to have. But in this first half, I mean, we were all excited for Locomotive to restart, but that first half, I mean, even for the most diehard Locomotive fan, may have had us like kind of questioning, like, is this something we actually want? Because it was dire. Like and it's no disrespect to anyone involved. It's no disrespect to the players, but the first half we were riding the struggle bus a little bit. And I mean, guys, for you, do you think it was a matter of them shaking off that rust? I know there's, quite a few times like overhit passes, a guy plays a ball into space, but the player doesn't make the run that he thinks he's going to. Just kind of these like timing issues and not really recognizing the, how things are working in a game versus training. Or do you put it more down to kind of the surprising team selection and sort of the midfield selection? Like, was it more so this training break, or was it actually down to, the team just wasn't really working the way that it had been set out to work by Mark?
I think that I think it was all rust, honestly. To me, it looked like all the ideas were right. I think they were making the right passes and stuff. I just think that kind of like the muscle memory wasn't there. They things just weren't on target, or players weren't quick enough to get to the balls. So I really think it was a rust issue. I think that this lineup, in a month, even if you play this exact same lineup, while they are, I don't think that they're the best 11, but I think that they play much better than they did yesterday.
Yeah, that's fair. I think rust definitely did play a big part in it. And like Duke said on the call, it was 104 degrees at kickoff. So, I mean, just actual hell on the pitch when the guys started play. So yeah, I'd say it's probably like 80% rust. I think 20% of it was actually a bit of the tactics and the personnel. I mean, one thing that I kind of noticed was RGV, they were defending pretty wide in numbers, not just defending the width of the box. And I think that makes sense with what their coach had said previously in the week about how they wanted to play. And so, when you have a diamond, naturally there's already no real width unless your fullbacks are getting forward. And I just feel like we couldn't do that as much as we wanted to in the first half. But yeah, I mean, there were some routine passes that just didn't go where they needed to or to who they needed to. And I mean, that there's one instance where that actually does lead to probably what should have been a red card for Yuma when Chapa, he kind of takes a bad touch on a pretty routine pass from Yuma, and Yuma has to intervene in a way that I thought was kind of dangerous. So he that's a let off for him there in like the 13th minute or something like that. So
he'll never admit to it though.
No way. I mean, and Duke said he was just, it's just a veteran play.
The finger wag comes out immediately.
Exactly.
I didn't make any contact. It was, I think you bring up an interesting point there, Mikka, because as we spoke about in the buildup, we spoke about when this type of formation is employed, the fullbacks are so important. So in this case, Brahim and Andrew Fox are so important in contributing to the attack. And it just wasn't really working the way that it was supposed to, it seemed, in the first half. There were a couple of glimpses where Fox and Rebellon were able to get crosses into the box. But I know that, the volume of what Mark would have liked to see definitely was not there. And I think the midfield has such a part to play in that, in allowing the fullbacks to get forward and giving them the time and the space to actually be able to occupy those kind of further forward areas. And I think we can talk about, in the second half, when some personnel changes are made, I think we can see sort of how they were given more ability to get forward. And the only thing I have, I guess, because it's certainly, there's a rust issue, a timing issue. I think from a personnel issue, the only The only trouble that I have is that I think that Chapa is first and foremost he can play as an 8, but he is first and foremost concerned about winning the ball back and kind of recycling possession, which he did do well, a few times throughout the match. He would win back possession and be able to recycle it. But Yuma also does similar kind of simple ball retention. Like, obviously he's a little more wild in the tackle sometimes, but I think between the two of them, they were doing a lot of the same jobs. And I think we talked about it last season a lot, where, you want your midfielders, if you're playing in a 3, you want them all to kind of be offering something a little bit different. And between Ross, Chapa, Yuma, it just got a little muddied and a little similar. And I think we saw the changes that halftime and on the hour made on how the midfield was operating, but we can get into that a little bit later. One of the warning signs in the first half, couple of set pieces from RGV, and we know from the home game last year that set pieces were so important as RGV equalized from a set piece. A couple of set pieces early on that, for all of the size and all of the talk about being better and more solid from set pieces, we did look a little vulnerable on a couple of set pieces. And actually Castellanos for RGV has a chance from a header that he directs wide about midway through the first half. So do you think that is another issue where it's just there's going to be some issues as we come back with those kind of set plays and the marking assignments and really tracking those runs, when to drop, when to hold the high line? It's all just kind of stuff that we have to work on. The team is going to have to work on and get back into the rhythm of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think it does have a lot to do with rhythm, and it seemed like if Chiro and Toko wasn't dealing with those aerial balls, then nobody was. And I mean, of course, Chiro has the physical advantage that maybe Drew Becky doesn't have, but also I don't see that center partnership being the one that we go with every week. So
right.
That might have something to do with the way that we defend set pieces going forward as well. But yeah, I mean, there were a couple times that the defending was dodgy, to say the least, on some of those opportunities. But luckily for us, RGV didn't take advantage. So yeah, I think it's just about getting back into a rhythm, and I think Becky probably will find himself hopefully in the fullback position. At least for me, I think that's where he is better.
Yeah. Christian, any thoughts on the on that fluidity or that any closing first half thoughts? Because I mean, in some cases, the less said about it, the better.
No, I don't think so. I think that, like Mikka said, Chiro was really kind of the star for us back there, the only defender of regard. But other than that, yeah, not much to say other than I'm glad that we got out of that first half, 0-0. Not that RGV had a ton of shots or anything, but I just think that there were a lot of times where a team that just like us, they're coming out of the same kind of, hiatus that we are. So, a better team on a better day would have, made us pay for a lot of our mistakes.
Yeah. And so certainly something to look for some improvement on here as we kind of get back into this return to play. But at halftime, the teams go in. It is 0-0. Locomotive registered just a single shot in the first half, and it was off target. It was actually in the first minute. It was blocked. Nick Ross from the edge of the area. But that was the only shot that Locomotive registered. It was looking pretty bleak. But in the post-match press conference, Mark Lowry talked a little bit about the halftime break and just what was going through the team's mind as they prepared to come out for the second half.
There wasn't really a message. It was more, the guys came in at half time. You could see they're a little disappointed. They're a little down. And it was more like, guys, come on. Like, what do you expect? That was never meant to be perfect, and you won't see a perfect performance for another couple of months probably. It's going to take a lot of time. We've changed some things this season positionally, tactically, emphasis on a couple of different things. We've added new players, and we haven't played for 4 months. So it was like, guys, get your chins up a little bit. It was good. There was some good stuff. Let's just fix one or two little areas, and we spoke about that. Getting our fullbacks a little bit higher up down the outside, which you saw in the second half. Foxy got forward really well and put in some great deliveries from the left. So we spoke about one or two things, and I think you saw the difference. We play with a slightly different energy in the second half, even though we're probably more fatigued because we're not match fit. I think that the energy of the guys, the spirit of the guys, was phenomenal in the second half, and it showed just in our. You saw the enthusiasm when we went forward, and the goal was a classic example. The goal, we have 4 players flying into the box, and it falls to Dylan. And when you run forward that enthusiasm and that desire, good things happen. And we showed in the second half how good we can be going forward.
So, words from the horse's mouth, Mark Lowry talking about the kind of change in energy at halftime and the couple of tweaks that they made. Mishak Jerome and Richie Ryan come on for Chiro and Toko and Yuma respectively. And I mean, just for you guys and Christian, we could start with you. Just the change was evident almost from the very beginning, like second half kickoff. It was obvious something was different.
Yeah, I think that it had to do one with the players. I think they're the players that we expected to see. So I think that, one, we are a better team overall with them on the field. 2, I honestly loved the halftime message from Mark. Maybe I'm too easily impressed or something, but to me, I'm thinking, when I'm watching the game, and we have a first half like that, I'm in my head, I'm wondering what I would say if I was in his shoes. And, this time it was me thinking, hey, here's what we need to improve. We need to do this. We need to do that. And I think that maybe as a player, that's not exactly what you want to hear if you're already feeling down. And so for Mark to have that kind of relationship with the players too, just knowing what to say at the right time, to me, that's the mark of a great coach. So that was impressive too. And then, I just think that because of that, there just was a energy difference. You feel better coming out than you did going into the tunnel. And so even if he didn't make those subs, I think that the team would have played better.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, though, that the players were so down about that first half because there was nothing glaringly wrong with it. It was just rust. And so I think in that sense, it kind of shows you the culture and the expectations that Mark Lowry has set out for this team, that they could be disappointed by what we thought was really a nothing first half. So, right. Kudos to them for that. And to Mark, I mean, Mark, he gives his players a lot of credit in that clip that we just heard, but for him to recognize what needed to be done and to make that change and be decisive at halftime and bring those 2 players on. I mean, we have a really intelligent tactician on the sidelines for us, and Richie and Mishak Jerome just completely changed the game and made us more attacking and more fluid going forward. And I mean, I really don't. Mishak was just basically a quarterback back there. I mean, completely just took over the game, spraying balls like 2 inches off the grass, but with a ton of pace. And Richie, I mean, he's got the captain's armband for a reason. He steps on the pitch and the level of everyone around him, it just seems to increase. So, I mean, really just night and day, these 2 halves. So I was happy to see that the players responded and that the changes worked.
The changes as well, Mikka, as you spoke about with the passing, it also became evident that, the inability of the fullbacks to get involved was almost immediately changed. And that pass you talked about with Mishak, literally playing that flat ball out to Andrew Fox, and and, finds him in stride, finds him in space, and immediately he's able to get forward. That changes so much of what we were offering in attack, because now the fullbacks were involved, and it was simply, the midfielders and a center back able to find them in those type of areas, and them not having to carry the ball into those areas, which makes such a difference for a wide attacker or a fullback in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in this diamond setup, you have to have your fullbacks involved, or it's just so easy to nullify, especially with a 4-4-2 like RGV were playing. So yeah, it was just so much more up tempo in the second half. You could just tell with the way that the ball was flying around, a lot of one touch passing as well in their half. It disrupts the opponent when you do that, when you're playing faster. So yeah, I mean, and I rail on the diamond a lot on the podcast, but it's only because of this reason, because if the fullbacks are not involved, then it's really ineffective.
Right.
But the second half, it works exactly like how it was supposed to do.
One thing I wanted to point out too that we commented on, when we were watching the game yesterday, Mishak was 32 of 34 with his passes, and even in the Mark Lowry system, that's incredible. And they weren't short passes either. That's the crazier part, is that they were a good distance, and so for him to be that accurate, like Mikka said, it was probably the biggest game changer.
Yeah, Mishak. I mean, he's also hitting bombs from like 45, just taking shots from dead balls from a distance that no one has any business scoring from, and actually almost scoring on the one occasion. But almost as impressive as how this team came out and attacked in the second half was how they dominated the game so completely. And it wasn't just, we stretched the game, we made it end to end, where it's just attack and then RGV attack, punch, counter punch. It was like we completely nullified RGV in that second half. They end the match without a shot on target. How impressive is that, even for this return? And obviously we know RGV conceded a lot of goals in their opener, but in that first game back, to have the structure and the game plan to be able to nullify an opponent like that, how heartening, I guess, was that for you guys, watching RGV kind of become a non-factor in the second half, barring basically a big mistake by Locomotive, which they didn't make.
Yeah, it's really encouraging, especially because there are so many new faces in the squad, as Mark commented on, to have that chemistry. Really, it looks like over a short period of time is really encouraging. And I mean, like you said, it wasn't just counterattacking and dominating them that way, dominating them in the physical game. It was really like almost tiki-taka in their half for the majority of the second half. I wonder, I was thinking about this. I don't know how much it really matters, but I mean, we were having hydration breaks. So, I mean, seeing how kind of poor the fitness was in the rust in the first half, I wonder if that helped a little bit to just give these players some time to regroup and get new instructions from Mark. But yeah, it's really encouraging. And honestly, he made more changes in the second half, particularly bringing on Distel Zola, I thought was great, because Distel immediately got involved. He's involved in, the eventual winner. Not that Chapa played bad or anything. I think Chapa actually grew into the game quite well, but
yeah.
I mean, Distel is the one that I've always been saying I want to see more of. So, but yeah, no, it's really encouraging. And I think that if we can respond and continue to respond the way that we did here in this match, from having a bad first half to much improved one, then I think we're going to make the playoffs pretty easily.
Yeah, I just love in this game how you can, I guess you can talk about, some of these players, Chapa being, I think, the chief example of a player who played well a good game. And the change, like his substitution for Distel also changes the game. Like, I think both can be true. Chapo wasn't hauled off because he was tragic or something like that, God, he was awful, like, get him off. It was just him and Distel are such different midfielders in what they offer, that in order to break RGV down, I think Distel was like the choice, especially coming in, having, fresh off the bench against an RGV team that I think was like visibly tiring, right around like between like 60 and 70th minute. Like, they really started to show the signs of fatigue and show the effects. But one of the interesting things we've talked about on the show is, obviously, Mark has spoken publicly about his admiration of Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola. Well, we saw a little Mark Lauriola, I think, in the in the second half, as the fullbacks actually started playing inside of our eights. So Nick Ross and Chapa actually started moving out to the wings, and we saw the fullbacks attacking through the channels inside of them, where normally we would see them overlap on the outside of those players. We saw them move inside and actually underlap with those players. So what did you guys think of that? And do you think that's something, when Mark brings up, we're changing some things tactically or like in our approach, do you think that's something that they've kind of tried to implement now, with just giving opponents something else to worry about than kind of the traditional fullbacks overlapping, making overlapping runs with the wide midfielders, and kind of narrowing our attack in a way, overloading the middle rather than overloading this or that wing? I thought it was an interesting look.
Yeah, you see Pep Guardiola augment his midfield with the fullbacks all the time. And I mean, this is no more evident than in, I think, the 70th minute. Someone takes the ball down really nice right outside the area and cracks one off their right foot, and it was Andrew Fox.
Yeah.
And so I was surprised to see him in that kind of like half space right outside the box. But I mean, it's exactly what you're talking about, is kind of confusing the opponent and using the fullbacks in still an attacking way, but having them underlap to where it's less predictable. And I like to see that players like Andrew Fox are taking shots, because that's what we asked for all last season, is just have a go. You don't know if it's going to go in, you don't know if it's going to deflect or the keeper's going to make a mistake. And with a team like us where we're not prolific goal scorers, everyone needs to just be taking those chances. Even if they're low XG or what have you, I still think that it's worth trying. And he almost scores, so it's a good little shot.
I mean,
go for it.
I wasn't really going to say much. I was going to say that that is a little too technical for me still. But like Mikka said, it's good to see that we're taking chances. That's eventually they're going to go in.
Right.
If we shoot 100 and only 3 go in, then that's 3 goals that we weren't getting last year from taking those kinds of chances. So
yeah. No, and it's a really good shout, because I think in the first half it was a little worryingly similar to halves we've had last year, where we didn't really generate a whole lot in terms of shots. There were a couple of times where guys looked like they were kind of shaping to shoot or sizing up a shot, kind of thinking about it, but then hesitate, they get closed down, and then the chance goes. So second half, it seemed like Lomis and Gomez were a little more willing to take the shot on, and a little more like, I think they were given a little bit more of a kind of license, because at times it does feel like we might try to overplay and try to walk it into the back of the net. Whereas, guys started to kind of have shots from the edge of the box or just inside. And that was always kind of encouraging. At one point in the second half, you actually, Mario Slomis takes a shot, and I believe it was saved it was kind of tame, like straight at the keeper. But you can actually hear someone yelling like off camera, like, keep shooting, Marios, like keep shooting, like it'll come basically. And I do like that because I think, so much of the attack is based on confidence. And putting those chances away is so based on confidence. So, the idea that, not having your forwards and your midfielders or anyone who's joining the attack kind of second guess themselves. Cause if instinctually they're ready to shoot, like have a go, and I think we've spoken about that, but, Locomotive actually put the ball in the back of the net after the officials whistle on 65 minutes from a corner. Mahrez whips it in, and Zola with a nice glanced header into the side netting, but it doesn't stand because Timo Melish is down with cramps. And I was curious what you guys thought of this kind of moment, because it obviously is already a stoppage in play. But we see so often teams play on through like non-head injuries. And obviously there was a whole kind of controversy at Leeds with that last year. But like in this case, the timing of it all seems so strange because Mahrez had really taken the corner already before the whistle started to blow. So I was curious what you guys thought of this, because obviously I would have liked to see Zola's goal stand. But I mean, do you think that the ref like makes a reasonable call there with Timo going to ground with the cramps?
He had to be from Gladbach.
Oh man, I knew this was going to come back to me.
No, I mean, it's unfortunate, but like, I don't think that he was doing it to be a shithouse. Like, it was definitely shithouse activity, but I don't like, it's not like I don't think that for whatever reason, they were able to tell that they were somehow at a disadvantage, and so he had to do what he could to stop it. I don't think it was anything like that. So I mean, I think the ref made the good call. I feel like we would be upset if the same thing had happened to us. So I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. I mean, I didn't, at the time when I was watching it, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I thought it was a little unfortunate, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like this could become a tactic for someone who is trying to be a shithouse, because he kind of just like slowly plops down. And I mean, I don't know. You just play on, the whistle comes to kind of a little bit late, at least. I mean, like you said, Mars had already taken the kick. So, and it was a nice header too. I mean, that's what really is annoying about it, is it was a nice goal. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think Melish was doing anything purposeful. I think he was genuinely injured, but I just don't want to see this become a thing, because we can't rely on USL refs to make the right decision every time, or know when someone's, faking it or whatever the case may be.
Right. And I think his, I don't know. I mean, if anything, it's nice to see that Zola's got that in his locker, that type of header, because at some point, I'm sure if he can meet a ball like that, maybe the official's whistle will stay, in his hand and not move to his lips at all. But we'll see. But it was nice to see that. We put the ball in the back of the net, and it seemed like we actually gained a little bit of confidence from that, because we actually did generate kind of a series of chances after that, and the pressure built. It was looking like maybe RGV would get out of town with the goalless draw that it seemed like was kind of their goal eventually. But the goal comes the 83rd minute. It's a great team goal. Great slick passing that you love to see. It falls to the feet of Dylan Mahrez off the head of Josue Aron Gomez, and a nice low finish from Mahrez gives Locomotive the lead and eventually the win. I mean, talk me through for you guys, like how this goal kind of made you feel. Obviously, as the first goal back, it was amazing. But to see Locomotive score in that manner was also just great to see, because we do have these kind of like principles around our team, and that Lowry's instilled, and to see it result in a goal had to have been just great for everybody.
Yeah, to see the goal was definitely a burden lifted off our shoulders. We didn't see one this quick last year. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So to have that was very exciting. Well, no, I take that back, because Derek scored in the first game. I think the win is more what
I guess.
Yeah. So, but what I think was kind of most meaningful and most important about it was who scored it. As much as I wanted Gomez to score, I think it's important that one of the newcomers scores. Just because we've seen that, getting that first goal is a miracle worker for your confidence. And so Gomez knows he can score in this league with this team. Mahrez hasn't played here before, so in this new system, knowing that he can work in it and he can be successful in it, I think is going to be important for the rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is really important when the new players get off the mark early. Gomez is so unselfish there. He probably has a look at goal for himself. I mean, they're pretty close in. There's like 4 or 5 players swarming the box at that moment, but he just cushions a header to Mahrez, who does well to chest it down himself. So there's just so much technical quality in this goal. It's just, like you said, Phil, it's not going to make any highlight reels because USL are obsessed with screamers. But this is a nice goal, a nice, really well worked goal. And I'm really, really pleased for Mahrez, because I thought he had a good game overall. And it's clear that he can be the number 10 for us, and fill those shoes for Velasquez. So,
yeah.
Boo.
Yeah. I think
with this new mix, does your mixer have a soundboard, Phil? Anytime we say that name, can we
hold on. I can hook you up real quick.
This is happening.
I gotta memorize all the sound effects I've got. Yeah. Or wait, hold on.
I'll take it.
That's awesome.
I can also hook us up in the future with when I need to like fill some space. Just
the last track. Seriously, Loco is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Exactly. Get a cheesy theme song for our 80s and record a little thing like. You guys can't see that, but they can. So anyways, but yeah, I think what's great about this goal is the players that touch it in the build up to the goal. So for a goal to involve Distel Zola, Mario Slomis, Josue Aron Gomez, and end at Mahrez is such a it's a goal that kind of highlights to me the way that if Mark could draw up like the way he wants this team to score, he could show this goal and be like, I want it to move from back to front through the midfield and then just amongst the attackers before it slid into the net, like a high percentage chance. And so that's what I think is so great about it, because we had actually seen, variations of this pattern before in the match, and they ended with, maybe not a great shot or off target or whatever. But we saw similar chances, not the same, obviously, because Mahrez is in the best goal scoring position of the match, I think, and he does well to put it away. But Lomas had a similar chance from a Gomez assist. Gomez had a couple of like longer range chances from similar kind of interchange. So I think what's so like great about this goal is that it's now kind of like it's a proof of concept for the attack. And I think for Mark, it's just great to be able to get that goal and show like, no, like this can work. We have to be sharp. We have to be quick about how we move. We have to make good decisions. But I think it just highlights like, this is how this attack is supposed to work. And this is how we're going to get results, like using this attack. I don't know. Like that to me is what is just like so great about this goal, especially coming this early in the new campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, going back to kind of the comparison we make with Pep Guardiola, they told Pep the same thing when he came to English football. You can't play this way here. It's not going to work. And then he goes and wins a quadruple or whatever. They won so many trophies playing his way because he insists on it. And Mark is the same way. He insists that we play this way. And I think it takes a long time to learn. And especially when you have new players coming in, that just adds a level of complexity to it. But yeah, I agree with you completely, Phil. This is proof of concept, proof that we can play like this and we don't have to just, go route one like a lot of other teams in this league do, which there's nothing wrong with that inherently. It's just nice to see that for a club as young as ours, we are becoming associated with a philosophy.
Yeah, it's such a great, I don't know. It's a great goal. It's a great win to start off with as well. This is
clean sheet too.
Yeah, clean sheet. And Logan could have stayed in the locker room at halftime and we probably would have been fine. He could have I don't know. He could have had his I said he should have set his Keurig up next to the behind the goal so he could practice his K-cup toss. But Locomotive do get the win here. And an interesting kind of side story going on while this game is happening. And Christian, I'll bring this to you first. Leandro Carrillo, seen in the stands, captured by a couple of the photographers who were present at the game. He took in the game from the stands and really fueled these rumors that he may be joining, having left Bravos. And I mean, it seems like it's a done deal now at this point with him at this game.
Yeah, I mean, this all but seals it, I think. Obviously they were not just anyone was in the stands for this game. To me, it almost seems like to be in that position that he was in, I feel like you basically have to be like employed by the team, but maybe because, paperwork's not signed or whatever, you can actually be like on the bench or on the sideline. So I think that it's all but done. And then according to the Juarez team's English coverage in the region on Twitter at Caballos Juarez, he thinks that he'll be announced sometime this week. That's what his sources are saying. So just another thing to keep an eye on. Maybe it'll happen before Wednesday. Maybe it won't. But the sooner the better.
What do you guys think of him as an attacking prospect in USL, given his goal scoring record in the Ascenso?
Yeah, I mean, the year that Juarez won the championship back in 2015, I mean, he was the league leading goal scorer that year. I think 20 and 18 appearances. So obviously it's a second division league, but so are we. But I also think that the talent over there might still be a little more prestigious and more elite than here. So for him to be able to perform in that in that kind of league really says a lot. And I think that if he does get signed, your Lomas prediction might go out the window, Phil. I think he has the opportunity to take that goal scoring title. And to think about what he would do tactically for the team is also interesting too. I don't know what Mark would do if he would have, two big strikers up there. Because I think that could be a lot for defenses, to basically be able to throw in a ball from either side of the field and be confident that one of them is going to get a head on it could be a nightmare for opponents.
And Carrillo scores quite a lot of goals with his feet as well. So similar to Marios in the idea that he's a very skilled striker, despite his size, he still offers a lot in terms of his technical ability. And one of the things that impressed me recently, as his playing time dwindled, as Bravos were in Liga MX, and he was obviously aging and kind of like pushed to the fringes. He would still come off the bench and score pretty regularly when he did get his chances off the bench. So that's something that I look to too, as he kind of like integrates in the team. He could make a pretty big impact pretty quickly.
Yeah, admittedly, I don't know much about this player. I am excited to see that we are addressing, the issues that we had last season and hopefully won't have this season is with goal scoring. I mean, I'm glad that the club recognizes that and that we're not just kind of turning a blind eye to that, especially in the wake of having lost Alexi Bassetti. But yeah, no, I think I'd be pretty confident saying that Ascenso is probably a better league than USL Championship. I don't know about how much. So for him to score as many goals as he did there, I don't see any problem with it translating here. And also, it's nice to see that the FC Juarez connection is being used for our benefit. Because we've seen how great of a signing Gomez has been, and so for Carrillo to join, that'll just be a bonus.
So as we close out this match, we've got a couple of things still to talk about, and it is the second edition, I guess, of the Shithouse 11 and the entry into the Shithouse 11 of the season. And for RGV, with it being such a kind of one-sided match, despite it being a 1-0, wasn't a lot of opportunity for RGV to shithouse because there was it just seems so kind of dominant by Locomotive after halftime that there wasn't a lot of opportunity, not a ton of cards, a couple of challenges that flew in, that ended in bookings. But did you guys spot anything in particular that this guy's going in the 11 for his shithousery?
I mean, Melish came kind of close with just like dropping down when we were about to when we did take a corner.
Yeah.
But even that's not that egregious, I guess. I guess it's you can look at it a couple different ways. I don't think there was anything else that was too bad that warrants inclusion in this prestigious 11.
Yeah.
But New Mexico United is coming up, and I'm sure that a couple of them would like to make it into this lineup. So, yeah.
I was going to say, with us playing United as often as we will, 4 matches in this return to play, I mean, they could make up the entire thing.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, that's
that's going to be very possible. The only other than Malik, the only other thing I can think of is I know that Tiberson had a pretty senseless foul. I think it was against Yuma. Later in the first half, where he just plowed right into the back of him.
Yeah.
And that's the only other thing that I can think of. So
was that when Yuma was just looking to pass the ball back to Ketterer?
Yeah.
Yes.
But Yuma's smart though, because you can tell he's looking for that. And then he gets up and is like acting shocked and putting his hands up like he usually does. Just the way that Yuma's body was shaped, I'm like, you're wanting this guy to go in through the back of you. So, I'm sure if someone else has a Shithouse 11, Yuma is anchoring it.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, I mean, what do you guys think in terms of we've been pretty unanimous about the inclusion. It's been pretty obvious most weeks. I guess the vote is either Malish Tyberson or Forgo. So how do we feel about this?
I would wait. I'm waiting for my real nomination. I know I'm going to get one on Wednesday. So, yeah, there wasn't anything. Or 2 or 3 or 11.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nothing in this match that was too ridiculous for me.
That's fair. I think we can hold on because there's a very good chance that we might get 2 on Wednesday. So
I think it's our first time recording where we go NA for our Shithouse 11 induction. But I am keeping track this year. I've got a Google Doc now, so each week when we pick, we will have a very clear record of what went down throughout the season, and we'll be able to look back on that at the end. As
Phil, just make sure you have some kind of awesome sound effect on your mixer.
You had one. You had one for the first one.
Yeah, I've got one, and I'll get that included on the soundboard now. Our little introduction to the Shithouse 11. But the next thing I wanted to talk about, I put out something. I'm calling it the Game Changers, and I basically just floated out onto Twitter. Who was it to you that stood out in this match? I think we all kind of know. We've spoken about a lot of the inclusions, but I wanted to go over our responses, briefly before we move on. Kevin Quintana, he said Mishak and Richie changed everything completely at the half, helping move things up more efficiently, and Distel was just on another level. Should have been 2-0, shrug. And I was like, could have been 4 or 5 if we had put the chances away, but 2-0 probably would have been fair. Completely agree, I think, across the board. Our friend Colin Deaver from KTSM, he said Mishak, Distel, Richie. Also thought Lomas was much better in the second half after a touch and go first. And I think everything we spoke about kind of contributed to Lomas looking much more involved in things in the second half. Lot of consensus here. Our friend Patrick Gabaldon, Mishak and Ryan in the second half, Chapa in the first. So much cover, each playing out of trouble smartly and always having an eye forward. Duke Keith, our broadcaster and the guy who was out there just in the heat, having to make his way through a tough match, no atmosphere, all that, and still generate the excitement around it. Did a great job. He said Richie and Mishak set the table in the second half, allowing for some incredible unselfish teamwork from Mahrez, Gomez, and Lomis up front. I can recall a couple of amazing passing sequences, one of which resulted in the goal. And he said, what I don't recall seeing anything quite like this in 2019. And I think we can all agree, the slick passing move, that was what we spoke about, kind of, a lot of great individual performances from last season and a lot of great individual goals. Not too many that we can look back on, though, and say, oh, it was, one touch, like slick passing.
It's always nice when, we talk about our impressions of the game and then we see that many of the fans agree with us because,
and
the eye test, as it were, and some of the exactly. Like I always think oh, is my opinion just like trash and I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's nice that we can all, pretty much agree on how that second half went.
The, Joe Guzman said the subs after halftime, they were a great spark. good energy that went through everybody. I think we're seeing a theme here. Roland from Eighth Notch, he said, Distel looks promising. Chapa had a good game, I thought. Once Rebellon comes along, he was a bit rusty. I like the Becky and Rebellon combo on that right side during the first half. So that's an interesting call as well. Having both those guys play on the right-hand side. I know, Mikka, you have some strong opinions about Becky playing at center back, but but I thought we didn't.
No, they
talk
got
about
better.
it.
They got better as the game went on, for sure. There was some disconnect between the two of them just because Rebellon was getting forward a lot, and Becky ended up having to take a yellow card because he was out of position to cover that space. But I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with both of them on that side.
Yeah. The Shark was back as well. He said Distel woke up feeling dangerous yesterday with his impact off the bench and genuinely loved seeing Mishak back on the pitch. His passing was phenomenal, even if some of his long balls were half a step too far. And the free kick was as close to perfect as you can get from 40 yards. Yeah, almost pulled off something spectacular there for sure. And then Cody Bachmeyer, he said, we looked sluggish in the first 45, to be expected. I thought Mark's subs were spot on. So that rounded out the game changers. I think everybody kind of had a consensus there that, Richie Mishak and Distel really changed the game. So they are our game changers, I believe, in this one, which leaves Locomotive top of Group C. So not as straightforward in the standings as last year, where we had our kind of Western Conference table and just saw our movement amongst that. El Paso, top of Group C with 4 points, the 1 point from the Orange County game carrying over. Colorado Springs and New Mexico level on 3 points, both with a goal difference of 0 also, with Colorado Springs winning their first game by a single goal and then losing their second game by a single goal to New Mexico. And Rail Monarchs have lost both of their games in the start to the season. So they sit bottom of the table on 0 points. What this does tell me, though, with this table now is your points from your non-group games count towards your group. So it's not a completely free regular season or tiebreaker game. Your points still accumulate in the group, even against non-group opponents. So interesting kind of format as a team from outside of our group gives us the 3 points to climb to the top of our group. So interesting kind of situation.
Okay, I learned today.
Yeah, I was.
Which just shows you that really the groups are about geographic convenience.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we head into our first group game Wednesday, it is New Mexico United, El Paso Locomotives, geographic, and I think after last year, rival from how the games took place last year. Their last visit to the SWUP, 2-2 draw. Couple of good Kiesewetter goals canceled out by New Mexico United in that one. And New Mexico coming off a win against Colorado Springs, which was the first group matchup of Group C. So what do you guys think about this kind of new look Mexico United? They're obviously without a couple of their big pieces from last year. Santi Moar's playing in Phoenix. Freighter went to Greece or something.
No, India.
India. That's right. Yeah, he went to the Indian Super League. So, I mean, what do you guys think about New Mexico United as a prospect now? And how do you think we stack up now that, last season they obviously finished in the play-in places. We, finished above them. So how do we feel about them as a prospect in this group?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can't overlook them. That's for sure. I know they lost Frater and Moir, who were integral to their attack, but clearly they're not having any issues scoring goals still. And I mean that I think it's also just a natural consequence of how they play. Very much on the front foot and attacking and countering and all that kind of thing. And we're a bit more patient in possession than they are. I think down the stretch, though, we'll see kind of what we saw last season, where our style of play, I think, is more conducive to securing a playoff spot and not having to rely on that play in. Obviously, it's going to be different this year with the setup and all that. But just as far as going far in the playoffs, I think our style of play is a little bit more sustainable, barring injuries and all that kind of thing. And of course, when you throw the whole aspect of the rivalry in, it's hard to I guess rely on each team's form. I mean, it kind of just, it's a derby. So
yeah.
And we did see some red cards last year in this fixture. So I'm playing them 4 times. I mean, there's bound to be fireworks.
I mean, for this one of the things, I think it was easy last season to be able to point out those big danger men and say, like, this is who to watch out for when it comes to New Mexico United. For you guys, are there players now, like, who is the person that you look at that team and you think, like, this is really who will have to contain or find a way to nullify their impact? Who's that player for New Mexico United now for you? And either Mikka or Krisha, you can start this off. Whoever's feels prepared to answer that.
Oh, go for it.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've not scouted New Mexico United extensively. I know more about who they lost and who they gained.
Right.
I don't know. I can't really pick out a player, to be honest. I really just think that the way that they're coached and the way they play the game is what's most dangerous, I guess, because I feel like with the kind of style that they play, the very like run and gun, if you will, you can plug pieces in much more easily than a more possession-oriented side where it takes a little bit more time to get up to speed, like a Mark Lowry side. So, yeah, I don't know who really is supposed to be the danger man for them. It was much more obvious last season for sure.
And Christian, you had someone in mind, it seemed like.
I was just going to say that it's kind of a crapshoot still. I mean, they have Sandoval, who was good for them last year. They have Parks, who I don't think he played yesterday, who, we haven't seen what he can do again in this league, other than kick people in the back, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. They still have attackers who did well last year. So we'll see what happens this year. Everything is still kind of unknown at this point, so it's hard.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think in terms of players from last season, maintaining an impact or maybe even like improving. I think Chris Wehan, who scored the winner for them yesterday, and Devin Sandoval are definitely like 2 people that I have an eye on, because we've seen that they can have an impact in Lissane's side already. And then with Wehan scoring yesterday, he'll obviously have some confidence scoring a late-ish winner. But I think in terms of players that I look at, and I think we spoke about it last year at points, or maybe it was in the off season. But Kalen Ryden going from Monarchs to New Mexico, I think that was a big get for them. because I think he's as frustrating as it was for us in the Western Conference Final, and then obviously into scoreless draws throughout last season with Monarchs. I think he's a player that when you talk about their kind of run and gun style, Mikka, and the way that they are kind of open, when you have a talented center back, I think whenever you see that in world football, the teams that have those talented defenders can be a little bit more aggressive and kind of play fast and loose. So having a guy like that, I think, definitely benefits them in terms of maybe not conceding some of the sloppy goals that they did last year. Obviously not to us as much as other teams, but I think they will benefit from having a guy like that. But with the style that they play and with some of those pieces missing, I mean, what do you guys see as kind of Locomotive's opportunity to exploit? Like, what is the one thing for you that our style of play you think could, or one of our players maybe, could really enjoy a good game out against United on Wednesday? Either, a person's certain playing style that you think will be beneficial for us, or the way that we set up against a team like United that does play this kind of high pace and high energy style.
I think with the way that they play, there's going to be a lot of space, especially wide. So I'd like to see us continue with this kind of, I don't know if you could call it an experiment, but just having the fullbacks kind of augment midfield or venture into those half spaces and just overload in that way. I think that could put them off. Because they've, at this point, United and a lot of other teams in the Western Conference have gotten to know how we play. And so in this second season, I think it's very important that we don't become predictable and we keep trying out those things while still staying true to our principles, but just utilizing our athletes in a different way. So I'd like to see that tactically. I think in terms of personnel, I don't know. I would just like to see the strikers, go toe to toe with them and score a lot of goals. Like you said, Kieswetter was big for us in that home match. So I'm hoping that someone can similarly step up and provide that as well.
No, yeah, I actually think that because I think that as far as personnel wise, we're pretty different than last year. And so I think that it might actually be in our benefit that, this is just week 2, or I guess week 3 of this season. And so there's not really a lot for them to go off of. I think they are more similar to who they were last year than we are. So I think that we have the opportunity to surprise them a little bit. And I think that that's probably our most, the biggest opportunity that we have.
Yeah, I definitely am looking at our control of this last match. And I'm not saying that we're going to be able to dominate New Mexico in the way that we were able to dominate RGV. But I do look at our ability to control and win the ball back too up high. I think it could be really beneficial with a team that does push everybody forward, really gets a lot of people involved in the attack. If we can disrupt that in midfield and catch them in those kind of transition moments, it could leave us with some good opportunities. I think it does change our approach slightly, because I think we have to be willing to take risks on the counter in those moments. Because I think New Mexico, for the most part, especially coming to El Paso and having to play in the heat, not that it's not, I'm sure they're training in heat in New Mexico. But as we saw with the travel and the heat with RGV, they definitely fatigued, I think, a little bit quicker our guys did. So I'm interested to see if New Mexico play maybe slightly more conservative due to the fact that they're on the road and they're maybe trying to conserve a little bit instead of playing like super high energy for a full 90 minutes, because I don't know if it's sustainable. So I would like us to try to take those opportunities when they present themselves to really try to hit them on the break. Because I think that's when they're going to be vulnerable is in those transitions. But I mean, we've seen now a good team passing goal, and if we can keep the tempo up against them, especially with those like one touch passes in and around the box, I think we can create some good chances. So just try to build on what we did against RGV and try to assert ourselves a little bit. But as we head into the end and our score prediction, Christian, you've got the update from our score prediction league that we've got going on amongst the hosts from the RGV game. So why don't you talk us through those results, and then we'll go straight into the predictions for the New Mexico match.
Yeah. So Austin with a big week. He called it exactly right. He had a 1-0 Locomotive victory with Maris scoring. So he pulls in 4 points. That puts him at 4 points because he didn't get any from the OC game.
Right.
Phil, you and I got a point each for predicting a win, but we got the score wrong as well as goal scorers. So that puts us both at 2 points overall. We carried 1 point over from the OC game. Mikka went for it all, calling the 0-0 draw.
And was almost right.
Almost.
I'm happy to be wrong.
That's fair. So she gets no points this week, but she did predict a draw, but with an incorrect scoreline in week 1. So she's in last place right now at 1. So Austin with 4 points, Phil and I tied for 2, Mikka with 1. Have to think of a tiebreaker once we get towards the end of the season if it's looking like we'll need one. But for right now, that's where we stand.
That's Austin went from last to first in one result. So you can see how there could be some wild lead changes throughout the season with the way we've got this set up. I love it. Well, I mean, with that in mind, Mikka, should we give Mikka the first bite of the cherry here with
oh God.
I'll let her choose. Do you want to go before us or after us, Mikka?
Oh man, I guess I'll go. Okay, so I have to predict a score and a scorer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I am going to go 2-2, and I think that Josue Aron Gomez will get off the mark this season. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I'm going with another draw.
Oh, I think we should also say that Austin put his prediction in the chat. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah. So
that's true. He also predicted a 2-2 with Lomis, his like highlighted goal scorer.
That was going to be mine, but I'll stick with Gomez.
The 2-2 is not. I mean, it's the historical result in this exact fixture. So like, I mean,
yeah, true.
You can't really, I mean, it's the only background we have. It's the only context we have for this match.
Although I want to be wrong again, though. I want us to win because it's my birthday on Wednesday. Please, Locomotive.
Yeah, and an early happy birthday to me.
Yeah, thanks,
guys. We'll certainly be celebrating like during the match, hopefully. But
yes,
Christian, what have you got?
I'm gonna go with a 1-1 draw, and I think Maris scores again.
Okay.
Dang. Okay.
I'm going 2-1 win for Locomotive, obviously. I would never predict a United win. Strike me down if I ever do. 2-1 Locomotive win, and I'm going for I'm going to go for Zola.
I mean, he did score for all intents and purposes. So.
I've seen it. I've seen that it's possible.
That's a good shout.
So yeah, an interesting array. I think now. I mean, what do you guys think about most of us predicting a draw? Do you think that just comes from kind of the intensity of this matchup, that it just kind of naturally the teams end up canceling each other out in a way?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's kind of like you. I don't want to predict a United win, but they're scrappy. You know, they always figure out a way to pull out some kind of result, especially against us. So, like last year, we were up 2-0 and they came back and tied it, and that's how we got the draw here last year. So, as much as you want to, you can never really count them out. So that's where my prediction comes from.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, in these derbies, they always say, play the game, not the occasion. But I am predicting the occasion, not the game. So that's why I'm going 2-2, because I just think it's going to be a bunch of goals and like a hollow feeling at the end. So that's, I'm predicting the occasion, and I probably shouldn't be.
I'm really looking forward to this one, I have to say, because this more so than, and it's nothing against, like, as we talked about in the last episode previewing RGV, RGV has some great people who are fans, and it is absolutely nothing against them or the organization. Like, they're a fine organization. But there's something about playing an MLS2 team that still made it feel like there's a little edge missing to this restart. I don't think there will be any confusion by the end of this match that, we're in it. And this is, like, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of moments throughout the match where we're furious at, United or the ref or a combination thereof. And there's going to be moments that I think we could potentially have some great celebrations as well. So that is a derby in a nutshell. It's just like an absolute roller coaster. My prediction is just purely, I'm hoping that we end up on the right end of that roller coaster. So
this is another team that have we beat them?
No.
Never, right? So, no. I mean, again, this is another monkey that we need to just get off our back.
Yeah. 2-2 draw, and then a bad loss
loss up there,
in Albuquerque. So, a little bit of a bogey team from last year again, but a chance for Locomotive to get group play off on the right foot, having started the season off well with this win over RGV. So I know we'll be watching with interest, and we're likely to do a watch party, I think, of our own, talking about the game as it's going on. Christian, you've got something.
Yeah, just one little last point. I don't know if you guys have anything to say or any thoughts on it, but I'm curious what the lineup is going to look like for this game. One, given that we played yesterday, 4 days, but also we don't play for another 10 days or 9 days afterwards. So I'm wondering if Mark goes with the strongest 11 and keeps them out there kind of as if we were playing in normal circumstances, for 65, 70 minutes. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I hope that we do take that approach, given that we do have some time to recover afterwards. I think Mike had said on the call that the coaching staff were looking to manage minutes because they weren't match fit. But as we saw, Richie, Mishak, Distel, I mean, they're game changers. And I think if we can start with them, then we have a really good chance of winning. But yeah, I mean, we do have to be sensitive to the fact that they aren't match fit. So yeah. I don't know. I would just go all in. I would go all in, put the best 11 out there and see what we could do.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll see another case. I think Mark is going to use halftime as a chance to get fresh legs in almost every game. Like, not necessarily two players at a time, but I think he's going to take that opportunity to make subs. I would wager every game for the foreseeable future. But that being said, I do think that the likes of, especially Distel, I think he only played, whatever it was, like 25 minutes. I think that was very purposeful because I think Mark sees him as a potentially like vital piece of a game against United. I think in trying to kind of dominate space and dominate the ball, I think Distel's like kind of naturally lends himself to a game like this. And I think same goes with Richie. Like, I don't think there's any way that this starting lineup doesn't have Richie Ryan in it. I'd be pretty shocked if he goes a different way. Not to say that Mark obviously knows best and knows a lot better than us, but I would be really, really shocked and I think the midfield makeup was for that reason. And then Chiro as well. I think Chiro came off at halftime. I think in Mark's mind, he would have played Mishak and Chiro together as a center back pair. So I think Drew playing the entire match, I think that tells you that he probably won't be out there since they were managing the minutes of the other two center backs, getting a half apiece. So I think there's some math going on here, as you said, Mikka, managing minutes and just trying to find the right combination. And in this case, I think Mark goes with something kind of resembling what we were predicting for RGV, not taking into account the fact that they had to play, 3 days later. So
we're still finding our form too.
Yeah. So that's my thought.
I'm going to say the last little thing that I want to mention here is does Omar start? He's a factor we didn't have to consider yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point too. I think what's interesting about Omar is the fact that he doesn't naturally fit into this system. Which is odd, obviously, given the fact that he was, the biggest and most prominent signing. So I think if he is introduced, it comes with a change of attacking shape, which, I mean, we've seen Mark put him, out wide in a 4-3-3, and it doesn't change a ton of what's going on up top, but it definitely changes the fact that Lomas and Gomez are not going to be playing, both as strikers. It pushes one of them out to the wing, Gomez, most likely, or maybe Saeed Robinson gets introduced. So it's not out of the question. And I think maybe he sees that ability to offer something different. Maybe Omar does get the start and with fresh legs. I'm not sure. Mikka, you think Omar gets a chance?
What a fixture to throw him into.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's so solid. I don't think that the occasion really bothers him, and we could probably use his power and his pace in a game like this that could turn into a track meet. But like you said, that would have to come with a system change because Omar's a wide player. I think we've all settled on that.
Yeah.
But I would like to see him back. I mean, he's the hometown boy. It's a derby. We're at home. But I guess we'll see. I want to see Fakobo too. I mean, I feel like we've forgotten about him, but I mean, that's just another option. So
he was on the bench, right? He was on the sheet?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was in the team, I think.
Yeah, and Duke said we had no injuries, right? So
yeah,
presumably everyone will be available.
Now I need to look. Like,
let me see if I have it here.
No,
he wasn't. Great content for the listeners, guys.
He wasn't on the bench.
No, he wasn't. Okay,
that's pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, well, thank you, Christian, for keeping us on track. You're doing like hosting duties, which I overlooked like two huge talking points for New Mexico. So no, those are both like really great questions, because I think it does kind of change the way that both managers are thinking about this matchup. And I know we're constantly bamboozled by Mark in terms of like, we think we've got him figured out, and then he does something totally different. And
it's because he listens to this and just trolls.
Yeah. No, he just logs on and is like, yep, all right, well, we're playing a back five now. We always know that he's able to be flexible. So it's one of the, despite having such strong principles, the shape is always up for debate. So it'll be interesting to see who's on the team sheet on Wednesday, and I know we'll be watching with interest. As we said, it's Mikka's birthday, and I know we'll be doing like a watch along for us as this one is going on, and probably find a way to live stream that if you're into kind of the alternate takes of what's going on. But if nothing else, we'll be able to talk to each other and get each other through the 90 minutes and talk each other through the stress, because I know our group chat was blowing up during the return, and a lot of nerves, a lot of emotions, but eventually ending in a win. So we will be back on Wednesday for that. And then, I mean, you're going to get probably more episodes of Seriously Loco in this return to play than you've ever gotten before in terms of volume. There is going to be tons to talk about all the time. So just be prepared for your podcast feed to be absolutely blown up by Seriously Loco, but hopefully you don't mind it too much as we get back into it. For those who enjoyed and aren't subscribed, we're on all the big podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and we're on all the big social media as well, which is now actually functioning because we have stuff to talk about. So, and as I mentioned at the beginning, we'll have some articles on the Patreon. For those of you who subscribe to our Patreon, thank you so much. We really cannot say enough how much we appreciate it. It's given us a little bit of flexibility to do some other additional things. And yeah, thank you guys for that. And thank you for anyone who is listening. And if you have been thinking about how can I support whatever, the Patreon's a pretty cool way for us to be able to do more content. And Christian will have an article up soon talking about this first
hopefully
match.
Two.
Yeah. And I will have one up as well on the analytics of this first match back. So there's a lot of content coming for the Patreon and our patrons. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, until next time, guys, stay loco.